Hello, beautiful. I am so excited to introduce you to our special guest for today. I came across his content on TikTok and I ended up doing a deep dive. It was funny, relatable, and it just felt like a safe spot of TikTok to hang out. He is a trauma coach, and I have titled him as the king of things that make you go, hmm. I am so excited for you to get to learn from him today. So, without further ado, welcome Ben Cole Edwards to your Body is Not the Problem podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for thinking of me. I don't typically do podcasts, but when it aligns like this, it's such a wonderful thing you're doing. So hopefully what we have to talk about today gives insight to the right people.
Yeah, thank you for being here. To start, can you tell us a bit more about you, please, and your body image journey?
Yeah, of course. So it goes quite deep. We'll start straight away. For me, it's been a long journey. And what I talk about, just for people who don't know, what I talk about is trauma based and sort of growing up with bad parents. And I'm Welsh, so I speak fast. If you need me to slow down, just stop me. It's absolutely fine. Are we allowed to swear here?
Yes.
Sweet, no problem. So for me, as a child, I was really underfed. I was like, I would say borderline anorexic. And I remember my grandfather once, he took a photo of me on a Polaroid and printed it out and then used a marker pen to go over all my ribs and all my bones sticking out. Like a family fucking joke, right? Because I was so skinny. But because I was so skinny, I had a six pack. So I thought I was in great shape. I don't know if you remember Bebo. I don't know if that's like how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 27.
Oh, okay. So I had Bebo, which was like just before Facebook, social media.
Okay.
And I remember taking a photo of my six pack and posting it online. And girls were commenting like, whoa, is that yours? I must have been 12, 13, thinking I was in great shape. And when I was around 15, I guess, I saw this guy on holiday who was huge, bodybuilder. And my mother said, if you start doing 500 push-ups and 500 sit-ups a day, you could look like that. And I thought, why do I need to do sit-ups if I've already got a six-pack? I thought I was in great shape. So the thing is, when we're kids, we can't question what's right or wrong when it comes to our parents. If you wake up in the morning and your mother slaps you across the face and your father says, you are the worst child in the world, you think, sir, yes, sir. Why would you lie to me? You're my parents and you give me unconditional love. So our parents are often the first ones to get that into our mind about our bodies, that something's not right. And it's typically, like I said, my content is based around, I would say, narcissistic parents. And a narcissist has to bring you down about parts of your life you're happy with when they are unhappy with those parts of their life. For example, if you are in a healthy relationship and they are not, they will criticize your relationship to make them feel better. If your parents are struggling with money and you get a promotion in work, they will criticize you and bring you down about earning more money to make them feel bad that they are not, to make you feel bad that they are not. So when you are young and you are happy with the way you look, and your parents are unhappy with their body image, they will bring you down about the way you look to make them feel better. But when we're kids, like I said, we can't question what's right or wrong. So if your parents criticize your body, you cannot see that as being nasty. You just say, okay, it must be. So a whole journey started for me. 16, I think I started going to the gym. I was a personal trainer for 3 years. I got to around 19, 20, and I thought, right, I'm going to start taking steroids. Just a normal thought, right? My father did it when he was young, and I told my mother I was going to do it, and she agreed to inject me twice a week. And I remember being in a supermarket. Just fast forward, I'll come back. I remember when I worked in a supermarket, and I was speaking to a colleague about it who was around the same age as my mother, and she said, Ben, how can you be taking steroids? What if your mother finds out? And I was like, maybe this isn't normal then. What's happening here? And I remember the first day that I took steroids, I said it like I was happy. My mother said, oh, you're proud of this, are you? But she was the one doing it and encouraging it. It was such a toxic and strange dynamic. So I was eating like 7 or 8 meals a day, injecting. I was unhealthy, and I looked unhealthy. But my mother would still bring me down about not being able to put on the weight. And when she met my wife, the first thing she said was, if you really want to get to him, tell him he's got skinny legs because he hates that. But because I was still under this conditioning of my mother is telling the truth, she is my mother, she must love me, I believed it. So when my mother would bring me down, I would believe those words and think, right, even if I was so happy with the progress that I made, I could look in the mirror and be happy, and my mother would criticize me, and I could only focus on that. So I would have to change it. I'd have to take more drugs, which is nuts to say, or I'd have to up my meals or change my training, and it'd really get to me mentally. But at the same time, my mother was buying random diet pills online to lose weight. So when she saw me happy, it was an attack on her because they have this authority-based ego where they cannot allow your happiness before theirs. So what would happen is 2020, I went through a lot of trauma, I lost a lot of close people in my life in a short space of time. And my wife was pregnant, and it forced me to, I call it a spiritual awakening. It forced me to get better mentally and to dive into who I was as a person. I just wanted to just get a little bit more positive, get out of the dark hole, and it changed my fucking life. And it helped me get a greater awareness. I could read between the lines when someone was speaking to me. I could, instead of my mother having a go at, instead of my mother criticizing my body and me taking the criticism, I could see it for what it was. So 2020 is when I stopped going to the gym altogether, stopped training, stopped dieting. I've recently started going back, like a month, 6 weeks ago. Stopped training, stopped dieting, everything. I wanted to, part of it was because I lost so much people. I wanted to spend as much time with my kids as I could when they were born, and my wife was pregnant. So I stopped going to the gym, stopped taking steroids like a year or two before, and naturally came back down to my normal body weight, which was, I would say, slim. And my mother came to the house once, and this was after I had this sort of greater awareness. And my mother said, "You could do with putting on some weight," which is what she would always say, and it always get to me. She said, "You could do with putting on some weight," and this time I said, "Why?" And that was it. I became a mirror for my mother. In her eyes, she was thinking, "Oh shit, I'm just being nasty here." She said, "You could do with putting on some weight." I said, "Why?" I said, "I'm healthy now. This is the healthiest I've ever been." I was like, "Why do I need to put on weight to live up to your image of what I should look like? That's not a normal thing that you should say." And it's strange when it's flipped around. So if I had said to my mother, "You need to lose some weight," then it's a completely different thing. But it's still insulting my image that I was healthy and happy with at that time. So what I usually say is, okay, that's my story. Without going into any further lecture, that's sort of my story with body image. And now at age of 28, 29 soon next month, I go to the gym 3 times a week because I enjoy it. And because I've got 3 kids and they're getting heavy. And when I have to carry my kids, I don't want to say, "You're heavy," so I put them down. I want to carry them for as long as I can. So that's me.
Thank you so much for everything you just shared. I think everyone will be able to find even just a small piece of that they can relate to, whether or not it's their mom making comments or having to stop going to the gym. I know that was myself for a long time, also
Mhm.
for completely different reasons. But in 2020, I also had a like, oh my God, like something needs to change.
Mhm.
And it was because I started struggling with agoraphobia. So I became afraid to leave the house. And that was when I did a deep dive into like my childhood trauma and things like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, the things that have just been like bottled up inside. But I also think it's really powerful for others to hear like the why. Like when someone makes a comment about your body, like, okay, why? And like being able to reflect it back to them. But there are so many things that I want to dive into with what you just shared. I think one of the first things is like the validation that we feel like we need from our parents, because
Mhm.
I think that keeps us stuck in less than ideal habits and unhealthy habits in general. Of I know for myself, when I first started my weight loss journey, I was doing really unhealthy things, except everyone was saying, "Oh my God, you look amazing." And I'm like, I feel like shit, but okay. Like, this must be good. And it's like my parents were complimenting me because, again, a lot of people have been raised to believe that like weight loss is always good. And so it didn't matter that how I was going about it was really, really unhealthy. I was getting those compliments. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we all want to be accepted.
Mhm.
So even when we're doing things that it's like deep down we know aren't good for us, we're going to keep doing them because we want to be accepted. What are your thoughts on seeking validation from our parents?
A lot of our parents live perception first. So they care more about how the family looks than how it is. So when you look better, if you are overweight and you lose weight, you will be seen as a better family in their eyes, as if you've got your shit together, regardless of how you are as a family inside of the house. So when you are seen to be doing better, they give you that validation because it solidifies this fake ego of the family, this fake image of the family. A lot of us are taught, conditioned even, to be extensions of our parents, that we are just a part of their life and not living our own. So it takes away our identity and our authenticity. We have to live up to their version of us. And the more we do this, the harder it is to figure out who we are, which is why, as adults, we get to that stage where we feel lost and we just keep running away from our thoughts because we think we don't like who we are, but we don't know who we are. We've been living up to their image for so long, thinking that we just want to be seen and loved by them. But the acceptance and the love that we are searching for, as awful, as cringy as it sounds, it's here. It's within us. We need to learn how to love ourselves so then we know what we deserve. So when someone compliments us or someone brings us down about the way we look, for example, we already know how we feel about ourselves, and we already have that strength within us. So even if we lose the weight and someone says you're looking really good, you know how you feel already, and their opinion, positive or negative, does not matter to you.
Yeah, when I was struggling with agoraphobia, I was having like daily panic attacks.
Hmm.
And one of the things that was like a lesson for me from there in terms of validation was I would start like having a panic attack and then I needed to talk to my mother for her to tell me I was going to be okay. Even though it's like I knew I was going to be okay and I couldn't even ask just my husband. I had to
Yeah.
specifically ask my mom, be like, "Hey, like I don't feel well. Like am I going to be okay?" And she would say yes. I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm okay." And it was realizing it's like why can't I validate myself in those scenarios? Like, why can't I tell myself that I'm going to be okay? But I think so many of us, we turn to friends and family to validate us, like to get those compliments or to tell us we're not how we should be. I think a lot of us and the women that I speak to, we also try to validate how we feel with the scale. We think that if it goes down, we should feel good. And if it goes up, we should feel bad. And then it gets really confusing when you're like, but I felt good. And then I stepped on the scale and now I feel like shit. What is your relationship like with the scale? Do you use it?
I did when I competed once when I was a personal trainer, done like fitness modeling show, again on steroids, and for me it was putting on the weight. When I first started trying to put on weight, I must have been 16, 17, and I was using like MyFitnessPal trying to count my calories, but I was like, I would go in the cupboard and just get a chocolate bar or just get a packet of crisps just to try and get the calories up, having no idea what diet was. And then when I was competing or when I was just it was just ego, just trying to look better. It would get to the point even when I would have a cycle of steroids before a holiday, so I would look better in photos, which is nuts. But yeah, as soon as I saw the weight increase towards my goal, I would feel great. But even if, like you said, even if I felt good within myself and I looked better, I would have really struggled to convince myself that I was feeling good if I stood on the scale and it showed different.
Mhm. What things did you do to go from having like an unhealthier relationship with exercise to now having a healthy relationship with exercise?
It was unfortunately the trauma in 2020. So I found my grandfather dead at the start in Friday the 13th, start of 2020. And then 5 months later, my father died. And I was having flashbacks from my grandfather. When they stopped, my father had a heart attack at 44 and just died. And my wife was pregnant, and I didn't tell my father because we'd argued. So I was just in a dark place. So for me, I focused more on who I was underneath what I looked like. Dove really deep into consciousness and spirit and soul. And I stopped going to the gym because I couldn't think of an answer of who I was doing it for. I wanted to look better, but for who? If like I said about the holidays, I would post a photo online thinking when I was a personal trainer, thinking it would get me more clients, but it never did. Or It was obvious. I'm married. I would never do. Wasn't for to look attractive to other people. It wasn't for. It wasn't for men in the gym to think, oh look, he's in good shape. I couldn't think of who I was doing it for, other than living up to this image of who I was told I should be. I think that's what fucks us up the most. Is we think we are our thoughts. When these thoughts come into our head, when a negative thought or an anxious thought comes into our head, we think, oh shit, I'm negative. Oh shit, I'm anxious. But we are not our thoughts. Human beings have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and we have the power to separate ourselves from them. When we get a negative thought, we can usually pause, separate ourselves, and trace that thought back to its origin, where we were told the same thing or made to feel the same way. Example I give is if a parent says to a child, you need to watch what you eat because you're fat and no one's going to love you if you're fat. And they hear it every week. They think, okay, so yes, sir. As an adult, they grow up, they move out, they're buying groceries and they go and pick up some chocolate. And they think, well, I better not. I need to watch what I eat because I'm fat and no one's going to love me if I'm fat. And they think that's their thought. And they think that's their insecurity. But we just channel our parents' bullshit sometimes. We believe what they say and then take it through the rest of our lives. You said that when you had these panic attacks, you had to call your mother. Sometimes our parents instill into our brains, what would you do without me? And they keep saying, and you, as a child, you think, fuck, what would I do without you? So as an adult, we move out and then we think, fuck, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own because I need my mother, because what would I do without my mother? And we just play back into their words because we haven't separated ourselves from our thoughts. That makes sense?
100%. And that it's almost like we're still looking for permission to live our lives as adults. It's like I notice it in people like still needing to like clear off their plates entirely. It's like you're not at
Yes,
home.
yes,
Like
yes, yes.
you're not going to get in trouble if you put it away and like eat it tomorrow, or even not being able to leave the house wearing a specific outfit because you're still like afraid that it's like, oh, my dad would never let me out of the house in this. It's like your dad's not living with you anymore. He's not in charge of like
Mhm.
what you're allowed to or what you're not allowed to wear.
It's strange. It's like even now, right? Even after all this healing that I've done, the the negative words are still there. So if you, I don't have Facebook anymore, right? But if you went back 12, 13 years, you'd probably find photos of me on a beach, full body. But now, even though I'm in better shape, I'm like 12, 13 years older, better shape, and I'm going to the gym. If you, and I'm just throwing myself out there actually, if you scroll on my page, it'd be very rare for you to find a photo of my legs because I would still crop them out because I still have that. My mother telling my wife, if you really want to get to him, tell him he's got skinny legs because he hates that. And even this week, I've had a conversation with my wife where I said, I can't really be bothered to train legs when I go to the gym. I don't get the same feeling, the same pump that I get if I train arms, just for example. I'm not going to look a certain way. I'm going because it feels good. But the words are still there. So it's no matter how much healing we do, we have to, it's balancing the scales of so many years of conditioning. It's not waking up and saying, I love my body now. It's not a week-long plan that gets us out of this. It's balancing the scales consistently. But if we've had the strength to go through it and fight our own demons, then we have the strength to heal too.
Couldn't agree more. I think a lot of the women that I speak to will have these thoughts, and it's like, how do we have these thoughts and not take action on them?
When it comes to these negative thoughts about who we are, firstly, we trace them back to who told us that. Because as kids, like I said, I thought I was in great shape. And I wanted to be Spider-Man. I wanted to be the next Jim Carrey. I went to uni to do acting, right? And then you ask me at 15, what do you want to do with your life, Ben? You think, well, I might get an office job. I might try and do this. Nothing wrong with office jobs. I've had them. But oftentimes our dreams and our aspirations and how we think about ourselves are pushed out of us by people who didn't achieve their dreams. So we go from when we get these negative thoughts as adults, it's usually a case of that's not something I would consciously choose to think. This is not something I would think as a child. This is not something the highest healed version of me would think. It's repeating the words because oftentimes our childhood, especially around the way we look, is toxic and unhealthy. But because it lasts for so many years and you survived, your brain thinks it's a safe place because you survived. So the chaos and feeling like shit about your life is comfortable. So if you woke up happy and loved the way you look, out of your comfort zone, out of your safe place. So your brain has to give you these fear-based thoughts of something's not right, and you have to find a part of your body that you don't like to make you feel safe to take you back because you survived. It must be a safe place.
That makes so much sense. Why is it important for us to know whether or not these things are coming from our childhood or were traumatic for us?
Because it shows where it stems from. Again, if we're kids and we naturally we you cannot have a bad self-image. You cannot think negatively about yourself on your own unless you compare, unless you are told differently. Comparison is the thief of joy. I think the quote is comparison is the thief of joy. So if we are kids happy with the way we look, even if you are 5 years old and 30 stone or 2 stone, right? Hypothetically, obviously, you would be happy with the way you look because you're happy with your life and you wouldn't know any different unless someone else says you need to change the way you look. And then that opens this whole other pathway in our brain where we think, fuck, I have to be something different to please this person. And the person that's telling me is the one that's giving me unconditional love. So it's important to know where it comes from. So when the voice comes back up and these thoughts come back up, we can correct it or not push it back down and not, it's not so much, we often get like a blur of negativity because these negative thoughts come up. We don't know how to process them because we don't know where they come from. So we push them back down and then we just run away from them. We dissociate all day and we put Netflix on and we clean and we go on our phone. And oftentimes, a lot of my clients, for example, will have trouble getting to sleep at night because we dissociate all day. We run away from our thoughts and we get into bed at night and you put your phone down and your brain says, fucking finally, I can think. And all of these thoughts come back up.
I actually just completed a certification, and one of the things that I learned was that in terms of body image, one of the best ways to improve your body image is to be in your body. But
Mm.
when we have negative thoughts, when people are making comments about our body, when we just don't feel good in our body, the one thing we want to do is not be in our body. So, like you said, we're going to disassociate all day long when we don't like our body. But then it's putting that like one step further away from being in our body and healing our body image. One of the TikToks that I watched of yours was talking about when we're stressing about overthinking is because we just haven't given ourselves the time to think during the day.
Mhm.
And I feel like that also plays with just our negative self-talk towards our bodies. And it's like we can disassociate all day long. We can binge eat, we can over exercise, we can try and do every single thing we can to not have to think about our body. But then at one point, it's like you're going to be trying to get dressed and it might be quiet, and you're like, I hate everything. I don't like my body. I have nothing to wear. And it's like, it's all going to flood in and it's going to feel more overwhelming because you haven't actually given yourself the time to just think and be able to like neutralize your thoughts and things like that.
So a couple of things. Binge eating is like there's so much to unpack in binge eating itself. A lot of us will do it to feel. If we have no idea who we are, we're not comfortable with who we are, that feeling that it's like a rush, the dopamine hit, we think that's who we are, so we go back to it. But also, if subconsciously we feel more comfortable feeling like shit because we have for so many years, that's our underlying default state of feeling, we will binge eat to self-sabotage our happiness, to take us back to that feeling because it's normal and we think it's a safe place. What I recommend clients do, I recommend everyone does, it's not meditation, but it's sitting in silence. I talk about this quite a lot. And it's not easy, but it's setting a 10-minute timer and putting your phone in do not disturb and out of arm's reach and just sitting. Not just for your body image, but it'll help you in so many areas of your life. You sit and you get the same silence that you get before you go to sleep. You give your brain the permission to think, and all of the thoughts that you've been hiding come to the surface. At first, you'll have surface level thoughts. Am I going to go to the gym in the morning? Have I walked the dogs? Have I fed the dogs? Does the car need fuel for work tomorrow? Once these thoughts are processed and elaborated, like you answer them. So a thought comes in, am I going to go to the gym tomorrow? Yeah, I'll go at 9 a.m. That thought does not need to come back. After all the lighter thoughts go, you have a little bit more silence and deeper thoughts will come up. Thoughts about, again, it could be your body image, it could be your parents, it could be relationships, finances. Once, and this is again hard fucking work, but once you work through those thoughts, you have more silence, more mental space, and the deeper stuff will come up. You'll have memories that you didn't know you locked away because you're telling your brain it's safe to think. All of these thoughts come up to the surface. And when we process these thoughts, we figure out who we are underneath and what's holding us back. The thoughts that bring the most emotion or the thoughts that keep coming up, that's what's usually holding us back. Once we start clearing this out, it gets to a point where you give yourself silence and you have silence. Or where your thoughts start running, they'll go to gratitude and appreciation for where you are. It's good to start the exercise with, I wonder what I'm going to think next. I wonder what thought I'm going to think next. And it cuts your brain off, and there's a gap. And you are immediately, we are just the observer of our thoughts. We are the awareness behind our thoughts. And once you give your brain that little prompt there, you wait for the next thought to come in, so you are aware of it. Once you clear out all these thoughts, which again, consistency and time and effort, when we are in arguments or heated conversation with our colleagues, our parents, family, our partners, we don't let our emotions get the better of us. Even when it comes to having kids, when we have kids and we get frustrated with our kids, it's because we're frustrated up here. If we have a million different thoughts running around and your child drops a bowl and smashes it, you're going to get frustrated because you're brought into the moment, into the present moment through this frustration. But if you've had a spa day, you're having a deep tissue massage and you've just won $10,000 on the scratch card and your child drops a bowl, you think, it's okay. Are you okay? Have you hurt yourself? Because you're here in the present moment. You get rid of all these thoughts. I've strayed a little bit from body image there, but that's the one tip that I can give people.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that we all have an exercise to start today then. And we can see, I'm going to challenge you listening to try this exercise once each day for this week and see what comes up for you. Another question I had for you is what types of childhood trauma can lead to poor body image?
So what we talked about just now was about our parents living perception first. They are treating you to live up to an image of how you should look, not how you are. They don't give you the freedom to be you. It all comes down to pushing the authenticity out of you. Even things like hobbies, we start a new hobby as a kid, and your parents, if it's not something they can claim your success as theirs, like piano, for example, if it's just you sitting down playing video games and you're happy and you're just in your own little fucking world, your parents will call it lazy, unproductive, you should be doing something else. So everything they do just pushes, they push that authenticity out of you, so it becomes harder to figure out who you are. So what we latch on to is what we get validation from. If they tell me I need to look better and I do look better, they will see me and I will feel loved. So we link that to love. But a parent's love is unconditional, so regardless of how you look, health taken into account, of course, regardless of how you look. Let me tell you this, right? A lot of clients will tell me that when their parents made fun of them from the ages of like 5 until 15 for being overweight, for example. The opposite in my case, my mother made fun of me for being underweight, but our parents are the one who feed us. They're the one that puts the food on the table. So if your parents are ridiculing you for the way you look or how much you weigh or how much you don't weigh, they are the one in control of your food when you're 5 years old. So it's not your fucking fault. If you are overeating or undereating, that's not on you as a 5-year-old child.
I think in 2020, when I was having all of these realizations, I think for a long time I had like a negative connotation towards like depression and trauma. And I was like, I don't got any of that. Like, no way. And then it was actually like, oh, maybe there was actually a crap ton of trauma from my childhood. And I think that many of us either aren't willing to accept it or don't realize that the things that happen to us are still impacting us and that it's something that we still need to, like, our body needs to digest that experience so that we can keep living our best lives.
It's difficult, right? Because
Yeah.
none of us think we all think we have a normal childhood because our parents say it's normal. They compare us to other people. Example is, I had this best friend growing up, and in the summer break from school, I would sleep over his house, and the next day sleep over mine, the next day sleep over his for like 2 years straight. When he would sleep over my house, 6, 7 p.m., he would ask for something to eat. And in my mind, I'm like, you are so greedy, your parents are overfeeding you. And I'd sleep over his house, and his mother would just come in with 2 meals in the evening. And I'd be like, why are you showing off? Why are you trying to impress? Why are you using your best food? But I thought my experience was normal, not I'm being underfed, he's being overfed. We have to think that our experience is normal. Otherwise, we are going against what our parents tell us. I think that's why my TikTok, especially, is and Instagram is just. I created it last year. Instagram was like December. because I talked about my childhood as if it was normal. Like I've grown so much mentally since creating my page. I would just talk about stuff that I thought was normal. People are like, oh shit, I went through that too. But because everyone thinks it's normal, we don't speak about it. Oftentimes, right, we have this gradual awareness that our childhood wasn't normal. For example, we start a job or we go to college or university, and we're having a laugh and joke with our friends or our colleagues, and we say, yeah, when I was a child, I would have been thrown down the stairs for something like that. Ha ha ha. And no one else is fucking laughing. You think, oh shit. Or when I met my wife 7 years ago, I moved in with her parents and her brother. And the first night there, sorry if you can hear my kids screaming. My oldest is like toilet trained, but the others are not, so they're screaming when she goes in the room. When I met my wife 7 years ago, I moved in with her parents, and it would be like X Factor or Britain's Got Talent would be on TV, and they would cook food and then all sit in the living room together watching TV, which blew my fucking mind. Firstly, to see two parents, my parents divorced when I was two, to see two parents sat together blew my mind. But then for them all to be in one room was so uncomfortable for me. I thought they were putting on an act just to impress me. I had to go on my phone and zone out, even though I knew I was being rude, because in my house, everyone was in their own separate room, not speaking to each other. There was no family. So we have this gradual awareness of something wasn't fucking right.
Very, very, very relatable. So I do appreciate you sharing it because, like you said, it's important for us to realize that the things that we were told were normal or just in general thought were normal weren't normal or necessarily helpful or healthy. I know for myself, my parents got divorced when I was, I think, anywhere 4 to 6, somewhere along
Mhm.
in that age bracket. And I only just realized this, I think it was last year, that for the majority of my life or since then, I had always struggled with feeling good enough in my body, good enough for others, good enough at school, good enough at work. And I realized that it stemmed from their divorce because I felt like I wasn't good enough to keep them together, not realizing it had nothing to do with me as a 4 or 5-year-old. And because of that, throughout the rest of my life, I was making things about me that had nothing to do with me. And then, hence, hurting my own feelings because I kept thinking I wasn't good enough in friendships and in my relationship and in work.
It's
So I,
people pleasing. You sorry to cut you off. It's
no,
people
no,
pleasing. You have to
yeah.
think. You say I'm not good enough, but for who? We have to make sure that we're good enough for ourselves. Also, without trying to make you a client here, when we think that it's our fault, not a natural thought, which is just a seed to plant, I guess. It's not something that we would think would be us because it's other people's problems.
Interesting.
Just
And
an example. If me and were I would say we never will, right? If me and my wife divorced, my priority as a parent would be making my kids still feel the love that they do. I would never be a case of bad talking the other parent. I'll leave it at that. I wouldn't say I might be wrong, but I wouldn't say it's a natural thought to think that.
no, that is very fair. I think for all of this, like in terms of even just body image, going back to that, we're not born thinking of any of these things. We're not born hating our bodies. We're not born thinking we need to be different than how we already are. And I think it's helpful to remember then that it's like, oh, yeah, those thoughts of, oh, I'm not good enough. I wasn't born thinking that. Like I was taught that it's
Mhm.
somewhere along the lines. I learned that. And it doesn't mean it's true just because you've been thinking it for so long.
Mhm.
One of the things you talked about in one of your TikToks, again, I watched a lot of them,
Thank
was
you.
can you explain what a dog whistle insult is, please?
For example, if your parents, if they want you to help out around the house. So for me, I was made to feel like the way I saw it, right? My mother treated me as her ex-husband. I had to be the man of the house from a young age. I had to do a lot more chores than my friends, just an example. And because my mother kept putting this pressure on me, what she would do is when we were out speaking to other families, just example, she would big up their kids to make me feel small. She would say, this person does so much for their parents, or well done you, you're helping out your parents so much. Or look at this person, like when I I said about being on holiday and I seen this guy who was in good shape. My mother would compliment other people's bodies to make me feel worse about mine. It's when they big up someone outside, they compliment someone outside. It's the same thing that they insult you for, the opposite of what they insult you for. It's like a silent dig. They look like they're being nice outside, but they're only saying it to get to you on the inside. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I don't know, it's like it's interesting because one of the things I was thinking about from what we were already talking about is how it's like as kids, most of us are taught like don't be a bully to others, like stick up for others, but then we're not taught to not bully ourselves. And we're also not taught that the people in our own homes can be bullying us. It's
Hmm.
always like we shouldn't bully other people, but yet it's okay for us to be bullied. It's okay for us to bully ourselves. And then it's like watching your parent like compliment or validate someone else. How can you not make that mean something about you as a child, right? And it just makes sense that that would continue to be in your mind as you grow up.
That's all we've ever. The way our parents treat other people is all we've ever wanted to be treated. That's how we want to be treated. We want to be seen, which is why, excuse me, which is why we live up to their expectation of us. To feel, we think that validation is love. But if your parents think that you looking a certain way makes them look like a better parent, when you lose weight or when you put on weight to live up to their image that they want you to be, and they say, well done, you think, fucking yes, I'm loved. Our parents are often our first bullies. And again, as kid, you say about not bullying ourselves as kids. I again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I cannot see that we would naturally just start bullying ourselves without seeing it from somewhere else or being told the same thing.
What are your thoughts on forgiving those who bullied us as a child or like for who caused our childhood trauma and even just like negative body image struggles?
Forgiveness is really fucking easy. Hear me out. Forgiveness is for you, not the other person. But I'll elaborate on that. But first, if we forgive the people who wronged us because we have the fucking strength to do it and we can choose peace, easy. But if they keep acting and treating us the same way every single day, then we have to forgive them every single day, which is not something that we have to go through, that we should go through. For example, the people who put us through trauma are just our parents, right? If our parents treat us like shit, and as adults we need to go to therapy, we can forgive them for treating us like shit because we are drawing a line and choosing peace for us. But if they keep treating us like shit every day, then just before we go to bed, we have to get down on our knees and forgive and fucking wipe the slates, wipe the slate clean for the next day. And we have to keep doing that every day, which is not fair on us. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Fuck the other person. Forgiveness is for you. It's forgiving yourself for feeling this negativity and frustration over people who never deserved your time or energy. And again, it's choosing peace today and every other day going forward and forgiving yourself for not doing it sooner. It's forgiving you for feeling the negative way.
If someone listening can recognize that they feel the need to have to forgive someone every single day, do you think that's the time in which someone should be setting a boundary or like removing the person from their life? What are your thoughts on that?
Boundaries in a healthy relationship are just absolutely fucking normal. If you're in a healthy relationship and you say, I don't like you when you say this, they say, okay. If you think that putting a boundary in place with someone is going to cause tension and an argument, ask yourself what the benefit is of having them in your life. If someone is in your life, whether it's a parent or a friend or a partner, if someone is in your life, ask yourself, what is the benefit?
The things that make you go,
Oh, we could go a lot fucking deeper, but let's just stay on the surface with body image. But it's what is the benefit of having that person in my life?
mm-hmm.
We're often taught as kids we love our parents and that they're our parents and that what would we do without them? And as kids, we lock that away. We're like sponges. We just absorb it all. This is the truth. This is gospel. We lock that away. What would I do without my parents? I need them in my life. They have sacrificed so much for me. As an adult, they're still there. And then you ask yourself why, and you think, oh, fuck. And then you feel guilty for not having a reason. And you hear their voice saying, oh, they sacrificed so much for me. They're my parents, which is again repeating their thoughts. This whole journey is about questioning in the thoughts and to figure out who we are underneath all of their words.
How many of the clients that you work with would you say are struggling with their body image, or like how often does that get brought up in your conversations with them?
I would say 60 to 70% of people. It's not, they usually come to me about the relationship, even though that's a part of it. Some people bring it up, but a lot of people don't, but you know it's still there. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a go-to thing. Our parents will, they give us a silent treatment, they emotionally neglect us, they compare us to other kids to make us feel shit, and they bring us down about the way we look. It's like a fucking package deal. But the people who bring it up specifically, I would say 65%.
Interesting. To close out, then, I have two questions that I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what do you wish you could go back and tell younger Ben?
I think about this a lot. It's not something that I would tell him, it's something I would show him. So I don't know how far you scroll back on my content.
Far.
Usually when we're back home in Wales in the UK, there's like Lego and a fucking lightsaber and loads of nerdy shit behind me. If I could show myself that image of just me in my spare room in the office, or my Lego room, I don't know what to call it, I would just show him that image because it says so much. When I was a child, I was told, I'm not buying you Lego, Ben, for it to be sat on a shelf. And as an adult, I haven't got any more room for shelves, so fuck you. We do things we would have loved to do to help heal that part of our inner child. But to feel comfortable at 28 to find joy in these plastic bricks, right? And these fucking expensive figures that I collect. It says so much about me feeling comfortable in my own and having a good enough job that I can buy the fucking Lego. And also being in a marriage where at first she didn't really like me spending my entire fucking wage on Lego, but to be in a marriage where she's comfortable to allow me to be me, where I'm allowed to be free and be me. If I could show that image to me, where I was lost, but I was on fucking steroids, where I was trying to be a manly man and live up to my mother's expectations, to show me that and to even just show me the image of my life. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I talk to myself, and I will just talk myself through my day. I'm like, today I got up at this time, we done this, we took the kids to the park, we've done this. And 5 years ago, I would have loved to do that in a day. I'd love to just be present in a fucking day. So yeah, now I'm scared for question two.
No, I love that so much. And when I have been scrolling your TikToks, those are the videos that gets my husband's attention. He's like, "Oh, Lego? What?" He loves it too. The second question is, what advice would you give to someone who's just learning how to love their body more?
It's picking apart the thoughts. What we often do, right, especially when we have bad parents, is we hold on to the good bits they do and forget about the bad stuff to feel like we had better parents and had more loving, safer childhoods. So then when we start healing, we do the opposite and we hold on to the bad things about us and we forget about the good stuff. So we will focus on the bad things we're just completely forgetting about the good stuff. Even if we start healing, if we have a bad morning routine and it really gets to us mentally, we fix the morning routine, which is amazing progress. And then we think, right, what next? We forget about that being a good thing and we look for something else to fix. It's picking apart, it's having a list of gratitude for where we are, and it's picking apart where the bad stuff comes from. A lot of us we put our happiness in the future and we think, once I get this, I'll be happy. Once I do this, I'll be happy. Once we book a holiday, once I'm on that holiday and I step off the plane and I feel the heat, I'll be happy. And then we live in autopilot for the next 3 months until the holiday. It's about being here, picking apart those thoughts and questioning where they came from, I think.
Amazing. I mean, even once you get onto or into that holiday, when you've been thinking about it for like that long of time of like, oh, once I'm there, then it'll be good. Once you get there, you're thinking, oh my God, we're leaving in a week.
Yeah. And then
You
you
know,
come home and you think, right, what next? Where can I put my happiness? But your
yeah.
happiness is always here, right? Without getting too spiritual. There is never this future version of us. When we get to the future, it's just this a present moment. Then it's not there. This is the trauma that we went through and the success that we will go through is all in the same fucking body in a present moment. I said I wouldn't get too spiritual, but I did.
No,
So
no, it's all good. We appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us today.
you're
I
having
know this is going to be so helpful for everyone listening. For those listening, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you and start working with you?
TikTok, Instagram, at Ben Cole Edwards, or Ben Trauma Corner. What a fitting name. And then there's a link in my bio, all the tools I can help, from one-to-ones to like downloadable courses. But yeah, the work is the work is within you and the strength and tools are already in you. I just give you that little push to get you there.
Awesome. Well, I will link all of that in the show notes below. So if you're listening and you're interested, you can just scroll down and everything will be clickable. But again, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, I feel passionate about this and about helping. So I'm hoping there's something here that even if it reaches one person, that it fucking opens their eyes. Hopefully it'll hit a lot more, but um I'm hoping it helps. If you're listening to this, and a lot of people get emotional, if you're listening to this and it's helping, you're not on your own.
I think that's a beautiful way to end this. So thank you. And just remember that your body is not the problem.